Hey everybody, it's Troy. This is the second lecture on network monitoring, and the first one was about uh, getting and using a type of monitoring uh, program that would help you with your logs. So if you haven't watched that video yet, give it a quick look. It's actually a demo from the company that does the videos and or the makes the product Netrix, and it's informative, it's interesting, and you may want to do it yourself, just for fun. I know a lot of you guys like to do hands-on stuff. So um, today we're going to talk about more in depth on network monitoring, and why we monitor networks and why it's so important. Uh, Monitoring a network isn't always the most fun that you can have as a as an IT admin. But it's really important that you understand the importance of monitoring, and that you understand that there are tools out there to help you do it. So that's what we want to jump into today. Talk about some of the reasons why, and then talk about some of the ways that you can get that accomplished. So first, um, we want to talk about uh, the purpose. And the purpose of monitoring your network, there's a few things you want to do. The first thing is to establish a baseline. Now, a baseline requires a little bit of time to establish, because the items that you're going to be looking at on a baseline change on a regular basis. Um, but the longer you're tracking the changes, then the more noticeable the outlier changes tend to be. So let's say that you've set up a new network, and you've got a network monitoring software like PRTG or whatever, and you're going to have to let it go for, you know, a month, 6 months, a year. And the more data points that you have, meaning the more um, hours that program runs on your network, the more accurate your baseline is going to be. And the reason you want your baseline accurate is because that's going to help you determine if your system is seeing an anomaly, if it's seeing um, something that's normal, if you're seeing something that's really out of place and would be cause for concern that you should investigate more. And it also helps you avoid investigating something you think might be an anomaly, but in reality it's not, because it doesn't reach that level of being that big of a problem. So some of the things that you're going to monitor for and create these baselines would be bandwidth usage. So um, you're going to know as time goes on how much bandwidth your company will use at any given time. And you do that by having a program that allows you to filter um, bandwidth usage. So, for example, I've got some screenshots here. Pull this one up for you. Sorry, my allergies are still killing me. So, this is a program called PRTG, and it's a system monitoring program. Again, really robust. The reason I pull this one up, it's probably one of the more popular ones, and I used it extensively, so I'm really familiar with it, and it helps me to kind of guide you guys through some stuff. It's not to say this is the only product out there, but it is a really good one. Anyway, so the way this product works is that you enter the names of your servers with their IP address, and then you set them up in categories. Set them up in different offices, and then within offices in different types of servers. They might, be a utility server, a web server, file share server. And then for each server, you decide what types of sensors you want to put onto that server. And it's entirely up to you what kind of sensors you throw out there. You can monitor everything from ping, disk space, services, different services that should be running on a server at any given time, and I'll come back to that in a minute. RAM usage, CPU. You can even have a sensor or a report for temperature in your server room. If you remember back to the previous module when we talked about network design, I showed you that there was that red cable that ran inside our server room. It was attached to a small device, and it would keep track of the temperature of the server room. And once it hit a certain threshold, we would get an alert, an alarm telling us, hey, you have a problem. We had to do that because I came in on a Monday morning in the summertime one day, and I went into the server room, and as soon as I went to unlock it, I knew there was a problem because the handle on the server room door was really, really warm. And I opened the door, and it was about 95 degrees inside the server room. Air conditioner hadn't been working probably all weekend, so that's troubling because if it had been a long weekend or a particularly hot day, that could have really been disastrous for us. So we did some research and found that there was a temperature gauge we could plug right into the system, and I would get real-time updates if the temperature ever got to a point where it was something we needed to look at. And they would even come to my phone. So over the weekend, I would have my phone with me, and if the sensor went off, I would get an alert. And yes, that is part of the fun of being a network admin, is that you get to carry a phone on the weekends. Your work is never done as an admin. So just know that. Anyway, if we look at this graph, what this graph is telling us, so this is a sensor, and they gave it a number, and it's for LAN traffic. So this is going to be your internal traffic, okay? And it's an SNMP sensor, right? So we know this is going to be email. And it tells you how much uptime it has, how much downtime it has. This one has a really good record. And then it shows you, as you look here, it'll give you different colors and then a key. So this aqua color is traffic in, and the pink is the traffic is out. So if you look, and it will show you like time, hours, and it'll allow you to select on the chart how many days this covers. And it looks like this one covers Okay, so sorry, this one they're getting live data, right? So you're seeing it live as it's going through. Now, I mean, I guess that's okay if you want to watch it live, but usually when you're going for any kind of investigation, uh, and I don't mean that you've had there's been a breach, but you're looking into something because it's been brought to your attention and you want to make sure that what you're being told is correct. So you can pick the last 2 days, you can go 30 days, you can go 365 days. Um, and I'll tell you where I've seen this used a lot, and it's um, with virtual machines. So you have a bunch of virtual servers and you put sensors on them and you track them. When the team that uses that server comes to you and says, "Hey, we need more disk space," um, the natural reaction is going to be, uh, "Let's give them more disk space." But the problem is that, and you'll learn this in the next module, but just a real quick spoiler alert: when you set up a virtual machine, you'll give it a certain amount of RAM, a certain number of virtual processors, and you'll give it a certain amount of storage. You can downgrade the RAM. I mean, you can take some of it away over time if you want to. You can also do the same with CPUs if you've given too many. You cannot do that with storage. Once you give it to them, you can't take it back without destroying the server. Now there might be ways of tricking it, but it's such a laborious process. It's not worth it. So you have a team, and they say, "Hey, we need more storage space." And you're like, "Okay," and they have 40 gigs. That's about standard for what we would give people. We look at it and say, "Okay, we'll give them another. Let's give them 10 gigs. We'll bump them up to 50. That should be great." You know, that's a lot of storage for a virtual machine because um, of the way those work. So yeah, it's great. Well, 2 days later they say, "Hey, we're out of space again." So you're not going to give them more space at this point. What you need to ask yourself is, what's going on that's using up all of their disk space? How did they go through 10 gigs in 2 days? Are they generating a lot of, are these SQL logs that are getting generated? Are they developing an app and the server that they're using is the one that they run the app on and it's just generating a ton of data, which is very possible. I had a situation where we were helping a law firm in a class action lawsuit against um, assisted living facilities. And when we did model simulation. Uh, when we would run the simulation for them, it took us a couple of days to run it, and we ran it on like 7 different machines at the same time because they had so much stuff, and it produced about 5 terabytes of data. So there are apps out there that will just produce this crazy amount of data. I didn't know how they would use 5 terabytes of data. I don't know how that would be useful to you. It's just so much stuff. But anyway, so you kind of have to know what it is they're doing, and the way you can do that is you can jump on um, and you can take a look to see what the trend is. All right, let's see if any of these show data usage trends. No, that's okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a look at it, and you're going to go, I would say, minimum of 30 days, and you're going to take a look at it, and you'll see that this is kind of a number that's this one's actually representing the non-unicast in. So you look at this, you're going to look at the corresponding graph. Now, when you do data, you don't have like the two different colors. You're just going to have a line representing uh, the amount of data used. So at some point it'll start at 0 when uh, when it was first set up, and then it'll come up and it'll be pretty steady. Might be a steady rise, but at some point it's going to plateau, and then you're going to see that first bump, that first time they ask for more disk space. And so what you want to do is say, okay, was it a gradual increase, or did it shoot straight up and then go? Next, you're going to look at the second time, 2 days later, when they've run out of space again, to see what's going on and see, okay, what happened. And it will tell you the date and time precisely of when all of a sudden they used up 10 gigs of space. Now, just because you have an anomaly like this, and you have something that is outside of your baseline, doesn't mean that you're being attacked. But it still requires attention because something's going on with that server that we need to address. And so what we want to do is take a look at it and get an idea of what we're seeing, and then get in touch with the team and say, hey guys, we don't have a problem giving you more space, but we need to figure out why you're using up 10 gigs of data in a 2-day period, and how long will this go on? Because we don't have an infinite amount of free space. It's finite. It might be a really large finite number, but it's still finite, and you're sharing those resources with all the other virtual machines. So that's the investigation you do, and you have the data in front of you telling you exactly when it happened, and then they can explain it to you. Oh, well, we just did a big, we just had a big data dump into this server from the app that we're running, and the answer to that is, okay, is there any data on there that we can clean up and get rid of? Do we have an excessive number of logs, especially if they're running SQL? Do we have the logs on SQL set so that they're not generating stupid amounts of logs? 9 times out of 10, they'll tell you that, oh yeah, we got stuff on here we can get rid of. So this helps you to present a factual case to your user, and it doesn't allow them to try to sneak one past you when you're not paying attention, because you have the raw data in front of you. You know what's happening and what the generalized trend should be. Now, as you take a look at this, this is a server that they have, and these are all the different sensors that they have put onto this machine. Alright? So, they have all kinds of stuff. They have memory, as you can see up here, disk free space, the connection, CPU load, system health. They have all these different things that they've connected, alright? If you look over here, it gives you some graphs as far as different items in here. These graphs are really hard to read, so you probably want to read the big ones. Also tells you within this server, what kind of sensors have gone off, what kind of alarms have we gotten. This red one right here, whenever you see a red one, that's one that is failing, and yellow ones are warnings. But you'll set your home page up so that the first thing you see are the warnings and the failures. That way you know the second something fails, you can get right on top of it. It's also a cool tool because it shows you exactly where this is at, um, where this server's located at. I think this is in Germany someplace. I think that's where these guys are based out of. But anyway, you can put as many sensors on something as you want. Sometimes we would have as few as 2 or 3 sensors on a machine because it, it, it wasn't business critical, or mission critical, but it was still something that we needed to monitor. So we would we wanted to monitor at least the ping, ICMP, to make sure that it's up and running and people can connect to it. We would monitor the disk space, um, and depending on what it was, maybe the RAM usage. All right. So again, all of these reports and sensors do two things for you. They do real-time updating so that you know what's happening on your network at any given time, and they also help you investigate when there may be an anomaly. And it's not going to just pop up and hand you your answer of, oh, well, here it is. But it's going to give you some tools and a place to start your investigation. Now, I don't think this is going to get any better if we go bigger. No. Sorry. So if you remember back when I was talking that when you set this up, you can you set your servers up in some kind of an order and then group them by use. So in here, this is their root group, which is where it starts. And you see it's the local probes, and the first thing you have is networking. So under networking, these are going to be the devices that are your core appliances that make your network function. So at the basic level, you're going to have firewall and switches. Now here they're using a Cisco ASA as their primary, and ASA is Adaptive Security Appliance. So it's a firewall and router in one box with special types of software on it. Then you see that they have switches. It tells you exactly what type of switch they have. This one they have an HP switch, and then if you see below, they have a DMZ switch that's been bridged, right? And then they have a 3COM that's a wireless PoE, right? So power over Ethernet. Then you have a core switch, and then you have another HP, and it's actually making some comparisons for you. Then in the virtual hosting, so you'll get this in the next lecture, but virtual hosting, you were looking at the actual physical server that holds your guest servers. So here we have Zen 1, Zen 2. So those are going to be two different machines. Then we have Hyper-V, okay, and that's the Microsoft product. And you might have a little mix of different things like this one does. Then you have vSphere, which is what I used all the time. And you have vCenter, which is its own server. And you have probes on that to make sure you're seeing everything you need to see to keep your virtual system healthy. And so as you can see, there are a ton of different types of sensors that you can use. Now, you can also make kind of a template, and it's a generic template, but the generic template will add the sensors that you want on every server. So you'll have, like, if you look here, we have ping, we have I think that says ping jitter. We have our WAN, we have a LAN, we have a DMZ, VPN users, VPN connections, and that's all because we're looking at our firewall. So each server may have a few different things that you're looking at, but for each different type of device, whether it's a server or a network appliance, there will be certain sensors that you'll want to put there so that you can keep track of what's happening. And the beauty of this is that once you set it up, and if you set it up correctly, it can be managed by one person. Because as soon as the alarms go off and you have a failure, you can jump right on it and take care of it. It's just that simple. Get on it, take care of it, and keep your network up and running. So the advantage again is that you will know before anybody else in the company knows that there's a problem on the network, and by the time they figure it out, you will be working on the problem, if not already finished getting it fixed. So again, this is a real-time presentation server or presentation monitoring that you can use. Super helpful. If you're going to even attempt to monitor a server, then you've got to have this as you have to have something like this if you're going to monitor a network in real time. All right, so this is showing us some failures. This is what they look like. They're red. So you can see this one, the top one, it's been down 79 seconds. It gives you the name of the device, which is R1. Gives you the IP address. Gives you the name. Tells you what it is, Cisco something, so it's probably, who knows. We'd have to see the rest of it. The sensor's ping, so what's happening is that your ICMP protocol isn't working. And the way it works is that this program is always sending out pings to make sure that it's going to work. And all of a sudden it stops working. So now you need to go and find out, okay, is it because the machine's turned off? Is it because it magically set itself from the domain profile on its firewall to private? And just so you know, Windows servers will do that. They will change their firewall profile from domain to private. And once they do that, then even though it's plugged into your domain, it doesn't think that it's part of your domain. So it doesn't allow ping to hit it because it's private. So you actually have to go in there and run a script that says, okay, stop these services, restart these services, and that usually gives it a little bit of a kick to get it back onto um, the domain profile. I had a server that always would throw itself into private. We would get the ping sensor like this. As soon as I saw what it was, I knew exactly what I needed to do. All right. The second one, this one's been down 11 hours and 15 minutes. Gives us our IP address, Windows updates, and then it says severity warning missing is above the error limit of, and it gives a number of updates. So what this is obviously, it's doing exactly what you think it's doing. It's telling you that, hey, this machine and this machine are not getting the Windows updates that they need, and those updates are severe, okay? Or not having them is severe. So they're super important updates. I want you to notice this. You see the 192.168.10.100? That's a non-routable IP address. So that's probably their internal network. And then you see this 172.31.41.97. Chances are that that is also a non-routable IP address, but it's part of their DMZ. Okay? And usually you try to make a big distinction between these two. Both non-routable IP addresses, but as soon as you see a 172 or a 192 as a network admin, you should know exactly, is this private internal network or is this DMZ? Okay? And it's important to know the difference. So this is what it looks like. You get these red error messages and tells you exactly how long it's been down, and then you can get out there and take care of it. Now, if you look, it also gives you priority by stars. A ICMP problem is going to be highest priority because that means that object is down. It's not working. You can't get to it. The users that need it can't get to it. And of course, if this is a firewall, then it's a really big problem because, of course, firewalls are something that you need to make sure are up and running. Although most people don't ping their firewall like that. Maybe something else, but it's usually not a good idea to allow your firewall to get pinged. Anyway, doesn't matter. You get what I'm saying. The other one that the one that we were usually most concerned with was disk space. And that was because we had a lot of these guys, because we kept them on such a tight leash with the disk that anytime they ran out of the space we gave them, and we wanted to be on top of that because we didn't want them to lose work, but at the same time we didn't want to paint ourselves into the corner, as the saying goes, by giving out too much storage space, because remember, you can't get that back. You know, once you give it, you're not getting it back. Okay, now this is a different report, so that's what this is what will help you with monitoring your network every day, every minute, even when you're not there, 24/7. There were multiple times when I was at home on the weekend, and my boss would call me or send me a message, a text, and say, "Hey Troy, it just popped up on my screen that your server is down. Can you take a look at that?" And so I'd say, "Yeah, I'll run up to the office right now." It wasn't too far away, and I would make sure that I could get it up and running and get it to where it was supposed to be. And admittedly, I have to be honest, I enjoyed that part of the job because I felt like I was making a difference. We were being proactive instead of reactive. So we had that problem fixed before the user ever even knew there was a problem. All right. Now, this product that we're going to look at next is it's a free product, and it's really cool. It's called CJW Dev NTFS Reporter. So, what's cool about this is it is it's a product that allows you to install it on one server on your network, usually on a utility server because this is a utility, and then you can point it at any other server and its hard drives that have the NTFS file system set up. And then when you run the report and there's all sorts of different things you can do with this. We'll look at some other screenshots in a second. But, for example, let's see what we got here. Okay. So, we can say, okay, we want to go to, there's a UNC path, right? CJW-02 support. And we want to see the C and the G drive. We have filters, we have options, and when we run the report, what it's going to do is it's going to go through and come back and say, okay, on these drives that you gave me and this particular UNC path, I'm going to tell you what folders are there, who has what as far as NTFS permission goes. Alright? And it will also tell me if it has individual people listed as opposed to security groups. And if you remember back to your server class, especially in Windows when you set up Active Directory, you're creating service groups or security groups, and those security groups are the groups that you assign permissions to. Those are the ones you use to set up any types of permissions that you're going to have. Okay? So, you set up your report here. You can exclude directories. You can, there's all sorts of different things that you can do. We actually had a document that would show you exactly what filters and everything else to use that we created. The reason we had a document is that we didn't expect all of our IT people to remember everything all the time. So each month, one person was given what we call the IT checklist to do. It was a whole bunch of different things you had to do to make sure the system was healthy, that everything was updated. And this was one of the things that you did is you ran these reports, and then the reports were sent to a file that we had, and they were twofold. One, so that we could look at it and look at it in a way that made sense, right? Without having to try to do it manually, individually, which would drive you insane and you could easily miss something. The second was for compliance. There will be times, especially you guys, where you have this security thing attached to your degree, where you will get a letter from a customer, and it's basically a security audit, and they do it through a letter, through a questionnaire. One of the things that they're going to want to know is, do you check to make sure that your permissions for your folders follow the principle of least privilege. And if you put yes, it's going to say, how do you do that? Now, you could be dishonest and lie to them about it, but if they show up on site to check what you've said, then you could be in jeopardy of losing that contract. Some of these contracts are worth a lot of money. We had contracts with different agencies that were worth 10, 15, 20 million dollars. So you don't want to mess around with that. That's why this made it so easy. If they showed up in the office, in any of the offices, all the IT people had access to this because we had it on a file share. We could pull up and say, well, what month do you want to see? And they'd be like, oh, any month. Click on a month, and up comes the report. The report might look like this, which is a table. And if you look, it's really easy to tell what we're looking at, okay? Top one is the CJW-02 support folder. Account type, user. Display name, system. Type, allow. Permission, the simple permission is full control. Apply to subfolders and files only. Inherited, yes. Okay. If you look at the next one, this is a user. It says Chris Wright. Allow. This person only has read write. For this folder, subfolders, and files, inherited, no. Now, the reason it wasn't inherited is, you remember back, we in the computer world, you have implicit deny, implicit allow. Then you have inherited deny, inherited allow. So what this is saying is that those permissions, the read write for Chris, were not inherited. That means that we granted those permissions to him. Now, when I look at this, the one thing that strikes me is either Chris Wright is a system admin, or we're not doing something correctly. Okay? Because he has permission, and then everyone has the same permission, and then you see what I mean? It doesn't make sense, but I don't know how they have it set up, but that would be kind of a red flag to me. And that should be a red flag to you too, because you'll know your network. And so when it comes to permissions, you want to make sure you can see, all right, I remember this folder, whatever it is, XYZ, on the file share, it should only have permissions given to security group ABC. Okay? Now, you're also going to have like network admins that will have permission for it. Great. But when you start seeing individual usernames, and that's not the standard, you have to look at that and say, why is this individual username on here? You know, is there a reason for it? Or is this something that we need to go in and change because someone has gotten elevated privileges and now you're in jeopardy of breaking the principle of least privilege? You can also show it in a tree form. That's what this is. Does the exact same thing. Here's your administrators, remember? Authenticated users, system. Give this guy again. Not sure what he's doing. They show you a non-inherited directory, inheriting directory. It also, when you click on this, here they have the Chris Wright highlighted. It gives you his SID number, which is unique to him. He's a user. He's not part of a group, which that's not really a good practice. those those people should be in groups. Even, I mean, if they're IT admins, they should still be in the IT admins group. Okay, um, that way you have control over getting rid of somebody if you need to. So you can do a table or a tree. We almost always did tables, but it doesn't matter. It's up to you and your bosses. But we always exported the reports right here, and we had a file already set in place where as soon as you hit export report, it remembered the file location. It was a UNC path. Woof, off it went, and it was put into the correct folder. All you had to do was verify that it got there. Okay. So those are some of the things that you need to be aware of when you're dealing with network monitoring. The other program that I used extensively was Nessus, and there are other programs like it, but Nessus was interesting because it would go through and it would find all of my servers that had some type of vulnerability to them. And it allowed me to set up Nessus groups. Like I could do Windows servers, I could do Windows IIS servers, I could do Windows um, file share servers, I could do Linux servers, I could do SQL servers. Um, there's a huge list, and then there was all these other things I could check for. And once a week we would get a detailed report that would show us exactly what that server, where the security vulnerabilities were in that server. And it would give us, um, something like, oh, well, you have X number of major vulnerabilities, severe, moderate, um, recommended, and then everything's okay. And so we would constantly look at that report. That was one of the things I did, was look at that report every week and go through it and say, okay, are these things that are really issues, and are we in the middle of fixing them, or are these new issues? And you could prioritize by that. All right. So just a quick recap. Um, Monitoring your network is important because you need your baseline. Your baseline is going to help you investigate and discover anomalies. Anomalies doesn't mean that you've been compromised, although it could, but more than anything, it helps you to stay on top of what's going on inside your network because you need to be in control of it. We talked about the different tools you could use to monitor individual servers within those servers, very specific things going on within a server, whether it's ping, CPU, RAM, disk space, specific and specialized services that have been added to the machine that need to be running in order for that machine to be useful. We talked about doing your Netrix, which is going to help you with real-time monitoring of changes to folders and files by who, where they did it, when they did it, what they did, how they did it, and it produces that one of the A's in the triple A idea in security, which is um, uh, access, authorization, and accountability. And it gives you accountability because you know who's doing what and you know who's accountable. If you don't have anything, if you don't have a way to track accountability, it makes it really difficult to know Is this being done by an insider or an outsider? And why are they doing it? Uh, and insider threats are at least as big, if not bigger, than outside threats. We also talked a little bit about the running the NTFS reporter that's free, and how that can help you to implement the principal of least privilege. So I hope this helps you guys understand a little bit about what it takes to monitor a network. The tools, the brand name of the tools, aren't as important as the concepts that you have to be using something to tell you all of these different aspects of the happenings in your network, and you need to have that, if not in real time, in enough time so that you can do something about it. And I think that's you guys are going to find this to be really important. Whether your network is on premise or in the cloud, it doesn't matter. You still want to know what's going on. And I would say especially in the cloud, because you're not in physical control of the data and the equipment. That's been given over to somebody else. If you want more information about these products that I kind of told you about, I think each one of them has a free version. I think PRTG might even have a free version. And if you do have like a little lab, at home, it's not a bad idea to download these and just start playing with them. You won't get the full benefit and effect as you would if it were on a network, but it kind of starts to introduce these concepts of creating reporting groups and what kind of items you want to track, as well as understanding how you need to schedule these reports to run. You can't have them run all at the same time because they'll bump into each other and then they'll stop. And you also have backups that you're going to be doing. And we're going to be talking about backups a little bit later in the course, but you can't have them all bumping heads, because if they do, then you're going to miss out. So anyway, if you have questions about this, I'm just a text, email, phone call, smoke signal away. Let me know how I can help you, and I'd love to. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.